All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation and sharing my mindfulness journey with you. So, as mentioned, I am Danielle Law, and I'm an associate professor in youth and children's studies and psychology at the Brantford campus. I'm also the director of the Child and Adolescent Research and Education, or CARE, lab, where I work with these very lovely, hardworking students. While I might be considered an expert in child and youth development, I am by no means a mindfulness expert. Just like we might practice the piano or exercise or gardening or painting, I practice mindfulness. I do it, but I'm not an expert. That being said, I'm happy to share my journey with you and some of the things that I've learned over the years. So, over the course of my studies, mindfulness was something that kept coming up in the research as something important for the brain. Naturally, as a psychologist, I was intrigued. I started doing a bunch of reading and learning and found that practicing mindfulness has a lot of benefits. So, when it comes to the brain, practicing mindfulness has been found to improve memory, focus, productivity. It helps to delay the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia and improve sleep quality. Mindfulness has also been found to help with managing our feelings. Research has found that the regular practice of mindfulness can help us with emotion regulation so that we are not reacting to events that happen in our life, but responding to them thoughtfully. It has also been shown to help reduce or help people cope with anxiety, stress, worry, trauma, as well as help to manage anger. Mindfulness has also been shown to help with our social relationships. If we are able to cope with anger and anxiety and our emotions in general better, this helps us have better relationships. So, some research has found that this has helped to reduce aggression and bullying in schools. It has helped to improve sleep, which helps us to have more patience with other people. I don't know about you, but if I don't get enough sleep, I'm pretty cranky and I take it out on other people. So, improved sleep quality that is supported by mindfulness has been helpful to my relationships. People who practice mindfulness have also shown to have increased compassion and gratitude, which are also important for improving our mental health. So, for years, I knew it was something good for me, but I didn't really know how to do it, and there wasn't really anything motivating me to try and change my habits and try it out. But then I met this guy, and he had been practicing mindfulness for years. There is nothing like a new relationship to motivate you to change your habits and start trying new things. So, alas, I tried mindfulness because some guy encouraged me to try it. So, early in our dating relationship, we decided to go to Thailand on a meditation retreat. With our backpacks, we headed to this retreat in the middle of nowhere, Thailand. There were dorms and girl dorms, and we were each given a cement bed in a cement cell, no mattress. We had a wooden block for a pillow and a mosquito net for protection from insects and reptiles. We were there for 10 days. No electricity or technology, no plumbing, no talking, no reading, and no writing. It was 40 degrees or higher, and we had no AC or fans. We were to wake up to a 4 a.m. gong, and we would sit in silence in a meditation hall with mosquitoes buzzing around, nipping at our legs, practicing mindfulness meditation. Yay! Adventure. Just before we started the retreat, Chris and I had a conversation. We knew we wouldn't be able to make eye contact or talk. And we talked about how this was an experience of getting to know ourselves better and really dive deep into mindfulness meditation. And it's only 10 days. I knew going in, this was a time to focus on me. Cool. Okay. So, bye. Love you. I was pretty confident I could do this. Day 1. I got upset because Christopher didn't glance at me to say goodnight before we went to our respective cement cells. I felt hurt. Day 2, mounting anger because he didn't look at me to say hello in the morning, and he didn't seem at all curious about how my first sleep in the cell might have been. I felt ignored. And this triggered middle school, where if someone ignores you, it means they are mad at you. And if I'm ignoring someone, it must mean I'm mad at them. So this took me back to my past when I was 13 years old. Day 3. I convinced myself he was angry with me and that he must be in love with someone else. And I knew who it must be. So I basically picked random person at the meditation retreat and figured he must be in love with her, even though I could see him sitting there meditating, doing nothing, but sitting there peacefully. I felt angry, insecure, and abandoned. Day 4, I decided that we have to break up. And I needed to figure out how to cut our 2-month trip short and figure out a way to get out of Thailand and out of the middle of nowhere. So this was a little irrational, maybe a little dramatic. Day 5, my birthday. Christopher woke up early to sneak a small satchel of green tea, not allowed, onto my meditation pillow. So I found it when I woke up. Caffeine! Oh my goodness, finally. And he remembered my birthday. He loves me. So then, day 6 to 10, I meditated on my dependence on affirmations, how my mind makes up stories, how I need to work on my self-awareness, my emotions, my reactions, and the stories I tell myself. So day 6 to 10 were actually a breeze after I got the caffeine. I also discovered that I wasn't alone in my feelings. After the retreat, a bunch of us girls who came with their partners, we started sharing our experience with each other. And they had all felt the same way I did. So they felt ignored and that their partners no longer cared about them during this retreat time. However, all their partners were oblivious that anything had been wrong. How typical. So that experience really transformed the way I thought about my thoughts and where I get my sense of worth. I learned that I have a tendency to seek out or be dependent upon external affirmations for my sense of worth, and that I often let my feelings get the better of me. I also learned that I tend to ruminate on these feelings and then create a story about them. I then allow those stories and feelings to impact my sense of worth. Having this awareness about myself made me want to figure out how I could take more control over my thoughts and feelings and stories to prevent all this unnecessary agony in the future. Because can you imagine if I had let the story that Christopher didn't love me anymore play out? Can you imagine if he hadn't given me the satchel of tea? I might have broken up with him right after the retreat, and it would have been based on my own imagination. This was a bit of a wake-up call for me. So, over the past 7 years, I think it's been now, I have started paying more and more attention to my mind and my thoughts, and discovered that I have a very strong urge to want other people's approval, and not just Christopher's, just in general. And I want other people to like me. This people-pleasing tendency leads me to create even more stories in many areas of my life. Like when guests are coming over, I start thinking, I have to have everything perfect. Otherwise, they might think I'm not a good housekeeper and that I'm a slob and disorganized. They might think I'm a bad wife. Sometimes I think about whether I said something or did something properly and whether I might have offended someone. Then I create a story about how maybe they think I'm rude, and then I start to ruminate on that. When I'm preparing to teach or give a presentation like this one, I can get pretty nervous and sometimes create a story around whether people will think what I have to say is important, or are they going to think I'm one big dork? And honestly, people probably aren't thinking any of the things I'm worrying about, at least not to the extent I think they are. I'm okay with being a little bit of a dork. I've created these daily stories that aren't very accurate and don't really serve much purpose, but they can often lead to stress or anxiety or worry and can impact my sleep, which makes me cranky. I started noticing that when I'm identifying with my thoughts and feelings, I start taking it out on other people. Sometimes I find myself projecting my insecurities on Christopher, my husband. We might be interacting with people in a social setting, and I might think he said something or did something inappropriate. And I'll create a story about that. I might start thinking that others think I married a socially awkward guy or a rude guy. And then later, I might get upset at him about it. When in reality, the people we were with probably didn't even care or notice that he said something that I thought was maybe a little bit rude. Or sometimes, because I feel anxious about the work that has to be done around the house and how other people might perceive it, I'll get upset at my husband for it. Like, why isn't he picking up his socks? Has this ever happened to you where you feel anxious and worked up and then you find yourself taking it out on other people? Well, I started realizing just how often my thoughts, feelings, and stories started to shape my mental health, perception of the world, and my relationships. I thought I better do something about it because one of my main goals in life is to make decisions that takes care of my future self. What do I need to do today to make sure my future self, when I'm 50, 60, 70, 80, or 100, is well taken care of and healthy? And the decision to identify with my feelings and stories was not good for my future self. So I began to ask myself, what do I need to do today that my future self will thank me for? There are the usual things, of course, right? Eating well, exercising regularly, but then there is also mindfulness. When I started realizing how my thoughts and feelings were impacting my decisions, well being, and relationships, I wanted to be more intentional about paying attention to my thoughts and practice mindfulness each day. But how do you practice mindfulness? Some people think mindfulness is trying to empty your brain of thoughts and feelings. Clearing the mind is often used when you hear the word mindfulness or meditation. But what mindfulness really is simply paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment, simply observing them and letting them pass without identifying with them. So I usually start by taking a deep breath and focusing on my breathing, just paying attention to breathing in and out. As I sit, thoughts will start to enter. We might start thinking about work or chores we have to do, or things our children or grandchildren are up to or not up to. We might start thinking about our feelings or what we look like. We might start thinking about things we struggle with, and we might start judging them. All sorts of things will pass through our mind. The important part is to simply watch these things pass. Notice that they are passing, but not engaging with them. Just like we might watch cars going by on the street. And when we notice we are engaging with them and judging them, we simply stop and let them pass again. What kinds of thoughts and feelings can you watch pass by? I like to think about feelings and thoughts as visitors. They come and go, and I can welcome the feeling, but I don't have to become the feeling. When I observe things in this way, I'm able to distance myself from those thoughts and feelings and stop identifying with them. When I stop identifying with these feelings, I remember that I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts. I am not my story. I have feelings, I have thoughts, and I have stories. But these feelings, thoughts, and stories are not necessarily facts. They appeared, and I made up stories based on them. They are part of life, and I experience them, and I can observe them, but I don't have to ruminate about them, and I don't have to identify with them, and I don't have to judge them. Dr. Susan David coined the term emotional agility, part of which means having any number of troubling thoughts or emotions and still managing to act in a way that serves how you most want to live. She also elaborates by saying that emotional agility is to be with your thoughts, emotions, and stories in ways that are compassionate, curious, and courageous, so that you can make decisions based on your values. So this is what I've been trying to do, to be with these thoughts and feelings and explore them with curiosity and compassion. Because my feelings are neither good nor bad. They just are. It's okay to have whatever feelings we have. When we observe our emotions while practicing mindfulness, we are not suppressing our emotions. We are simply observing them without judging them. We are noticing that we have them. In fact, research on emotional suppression shows that when emotions are pushed aside or ignored, they get stronger. So we don't want to suppress them. We want to notice them. We also want to feel them. But just because we feel them doesn't mean we need to act on them. We don't need to identify ourselves with them. We don't need to think we are them. So for example, I might feel insecure about something, but this doesn't mean I need to ruminate on it. I can notice that I feel insecure and accept that I feel that way, but then not let that feeling dictate what I do next. Because just because I might feel not good enough doesn't mean that that's actually true. In fact, all of this reminded me that my happiness must come from within, not from other people. I needed to learn how to give myself approval, not seek approval from others. My sense of worth had to come from inside. And to do this, I needed to stop being critical of myself and fearful of how I thought other people might be critical of me. I needed to exercise some self compassion. Self compassion is simply giving the same kindness to ourselves that we would give to others. Mindfulness is the core of self compassion. Self compassion is not a way of judging ourselves positively or negatively. Self compassion is a way of relating to ourselves kindly, embracing ourselves as we are, flaws and all. So, Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Chris Germer have done a lot of work on the benefits of self compassion on our overall well being. They have found that self compassion incorporates mindfulness, which is recognizing when we're stressed or struggling without being judgmental or overreacting. It's simply acknowledging, I am stressed. It also includes self kindness, which is being supportive and understanding towards ourselves when we're having a hard time. Typically, when we're struggling or make a mistake, we can be pretty self critical. We might feel unworthy. We might feel shame. We might say we're stupid, or I can't believe I did that, or what was I thinking, or I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? Self kindness reminds us to speak to ourselves like we would to a good friend who is struggling. And we probably wouldn't say those kinds of things to a good friend struggling. Finally, self compassion includes connectedness, remembering that everyone makes mistakes and experiences difficult times. Everyone struggles with body image issues, health issues, saying the wrong thing, making mistakes. Remembering we are not alone, that we are going through all of this is part of the human experience. We all go through these things. An easy way to remember this is through the acronym RAIN, which was derived by Dr. Tara Brach. And RAIN stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So, as mentioned before, self compassion involves mindfulness. This means recognizing when we're stressed or struggling without being judgmental or overreacting. It also means allowing ourselves to feel the feelings without doing anything. Just feel them. So, in the case when I recognize that I'm feeling nervous and anxious about giving a talk, or where I sense that I'm getting a bit worked up in any situation where I'm concerned about what people might think of me, I take a minute to sit and be silent and just breathe and recognize those feelings. So rather than scurrying around trying to clean the house or yelling at my husband to pick up his things or trying to frantically figure things out on the computer, I pause and recognize and name the feelings I have. This is anxiety. This is insecurity. And that's it. We just name them. I then investigate the feeling in my body without judgment. I notice how my heart might be beating faster, or how I might have tightness in my chest or a lump in my throat. I notice how my stomach might have a knot in it or is kind of tensed up, or how my forehead might be furrowed. I pay attention to how my shoulders might be uplifted and tight, or how my jaw might be clenched. I pay attention or investigate these parts of my body, and then I try to relax them. So once I've recognized my emotions by naming them and allowed myself to feel them in my body, I can begin to nurture them through self kindness and connectedness. Self kindness is being supportive and understanding towards ourselves when we're having a hard time, rather than speaking harshly or being self critical. So I might say, this is anxiety, this is insecurity, and that's okay. I might even say to myself, I know this is hard. I know you have a lot on your plate. Feeling this way makes sense. It means you care. Then I move on to connectedness. And connectedness is remembering that everyone makes mistakes and experiences difficulties all the time. We are not alone. So I might say, anxiety and insecurity are a part of life. Everyone has anxiety, and that's okay. So, part of nurturing is recognizing that we are all in this together, that our struggles are part of life, and also remembering to speak kindly to ourselves. As I recognize and allow my feelings to be there, and as I investigate how it feels in my body, I also nurture myself and remind myself that it's all normal. Anxiety is normal. So, you see, I'm not running away or avoiding the feelings. I'm being with them, acknowledging them. And then they naturally lift. Working through rain and this self compassion practice helps to calm my body, accept my feelings, thoughts, and stories, and then allows me to respond in a more objective way rather than a reactive way. Because as Dr. Kristen Neff and Chris Germer say, self compassion is a way of relating to the ever changing landscape of who we are with kindness and acceptance, especially when we fail or feel inadequate. Self compassion requires acknowledging that we are all imperfect. Self compassion is always there for us, reminding us that we are enough, even if we think or feel that we aren't. And Dr. Brene Brown says, when we work from a place of I'm enough, then we stop screaming and start listening. We're kinder and gentler to the people around us, and we're kinder and gentler to ourselves. It all comes full circle then, because the way we treat ourselves is how we end up treating others, because how we perceive our outer world is a reflection of how we perceive our inner world. So if we are in turmoil and identifying with our thoughts and feelings, we reflect that out into the world, and that influences how we see the world, the decisions we make, and the relationships we form. What I want to try and do is align my inner world with what is actually going on so that I'm not making decisions based on my fears or struggles or stories that I made up. I want to make wise decisions, and mindfulness helps me do that. So if you're interested in learning more about mindfulness and self-compassion, here are a few resources. Dr. Tara Brach has written 2 books, one called Radical Self-Acceptance and one called Radical Compassion. And she's a psychologist and a meditation teacher. I think I have a reading list actually that I will share with all of you so you don't need to worry too much about writing things down. I'll give you the list. Also, Kristen Neff has written two books called Self Compassion: The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. And that just explains a little bit more about self compassion, what it is, why it's important for us. And then Fierce Self Compassion, which is about how women can harness kindness to speak up, claim their power, and thrive. Because there is a myth out there that if you are self compassionate, you're being selfish. And there's a myth out there that if you show too much compassion, you'll be walked all over and become a doormat. And so, fierce self compassion talks about how that's not true and how we can find balance between compassion, self compassion, and managing our boundaries. If you are interested in learning more about self compassion and practicing it in your own life, you can pick up Kristen and Chris's Mindful Self Compassion workbook. And I actually just finished working through this workbook myself, and I learned a lot about myself and my relationships. So I would encourage you to check out this workbook as well. And also, Brene Brown, she's very famous. She's written lots and lots of books. These are two of them: The Gifts of Imperfection and Daring Greatly. But she has a lot of other books that you've probably heard about. But she's also has a lot of really good advice and feedback based on her research and experiences. And if you have any questions or concerns or feedback, please do not hesitate to connect with me. My email address is dlaw@wlu.ca. Thank you.